One of the things I talk about in this empathic communication seminar is how we're very much up in our heads. That's where we pass judgments. And another place we're very much into is our stomach, right? There's two places, in the head and stomach. So this area is where we would like to go to for empathic behavior, empathic communication, etc. However, we're here, we just sort of skip over here. And we're going to talk about that in regard to feelings in a few minutes. And so what I say is that we can picture ourselves like a practical picture of our psyche or our mentality would be something like that demon in the Ramayana, Kabanda. You've heard of him before? Kabanda was a big stomach and a mind and a mouth, so he could eat. Because he had fought with Indra. Actually, previously he was a Gandharva. He was cursed to become like demoniac. And then he was crushed by Indra, and then he said to Indra, how am I going to eat? Indra opened up a mouth and this big ball that was his head and stomach. And I don't know where the heart was. So sometimes I would say that's how we should picture ourselves. The head, the stomach, but where's the heart? So empathic communication is to help us connect with the heart and the stomach and all of our needs. I mean, we do have a head need too, so it has to be balanced. Like you talk about yoga, one aspect of yoga is balancing the chakras. You know, you don't want to be down there all the time. Or you don't want to be up here all the time. You want to have all your chakras balanced. So empathic communication is the best way to balance all the chakras. It's better than Kundalini yoga. Okay, so maybe we should start. Okay, so thank you all for coming back on this second day. And today we're going to have a very exciting day. First, I think we'll chant. And then, after that, we'll read a little quote from Prabhupada, and then we'll get to the essence of the seminar. We're going to review a little bit about what we did yesterday, what we learned yesterday, hopefully what we learned yesterday, and then go ahead to the process of empathic communication, the step-by-step process of empathic communication, do some exercises, etc. First, we're going to chant today, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, and we're going to try, hopefully, to picture what the words mean in the mantra. You know, Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Radha and Madhava, that's Radha and Krishna, are enjoying in the bushes of Vrindavan. Gopi Jana. So Krishna is the pleaser of the gopis. He's the lifter of Govardhan Hill. And you can actually picture Krishna lifting Govardhan Hill with his pinky of his left hand. It's my favorite place. Giribharadhari, Yashoda Nana, dearmost of Yashoda and the residents of Vrindavan. Jamuna Tiravanachari, so he is enacting his pastimes on the banks of the Yamuna River. So this is a very descriptive. Prabhupada said this particular poem describes Vrindavan, the very life in Vrindavan. So when we chant this poem, and when we chant any other poem, Vaishnava song, or the Maha Mantra, we should be conscious of why we're chanting, what we're chanting. In other words, one of the things I talk about in my seminar about connecting to the holy name is that before we chant, we do a sankalpa. Everybody knows what a sankalpa is? Sankalpa means you sort of determine why you're doing what you're doing today. Like if you're doing a marriage, then the sankalpa would be, you know, we're here on this something day of the moon, day of the year, and all that other nice stuff to perform this marriage of Devi and Das. Usually it's Devi and Das. Nowadays maybe Dasi and Dasi. But anyway, that's so that got to be politically correct nowadays. So we're here performing this marriage on this particular day. So getting back to the serious point is when we chant the holy name, we should think, why am I chanting? Before you start chanting, what's the reason? What's my reason I am chanting today? In other words, instead of saying I have to chant, it's getting back to the teaching of empathic communication. Instead of saying I have to chant, I'm choosing to chant because of my particular reason today. And every day, you'll have a different reason. You know, some days, it'll be, I just want to go back to Godhead. Other days, it'll be, Krishna, save me. I've been asked to be temple president, and it's too much for me. Other days, you like Mayapur will chant, save me from this oppressive guru. Hare Krishna, 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 save me. So, in other words, that Sankalpa really helps connect. Why am I going to Mangalarti? And then, while you're doing the activity, remain connected to the meaning of it and the prayer. The chanting is a prayer. Vaishnava songs are a prayer. Prayers are of different types. Some are glorification and some are you're asking for something. Don't be afraid to ask Krishna for something. He will help. What is it? Bhoktaram jagatapasam sarvalokameshwar. Suridam sarvabhutanam yadvamam shantim richati. Krishna is your friend. Not only your friend, he's surit. It means he's your well-wishing friend in your heart. Heart friend. Actually, surit means good heart. So he's your heart friend. So it's really nice to think of it like that. When I first joined the movement, I liked to chant Hare Krishna. I still do. But when I first joined the movement, I'd like to chant Hare Krishna because I realized I could always take my best friend with me. And we're all we have a need for a good friend, someone to support us. And so that was one of the main impetuses for me to chant. Okay, so let's chant Jai Radha Madhava. That's a quick introduction. No, hands are good. Hands and mouth. Sometimes it helps us to concentrate when we don't use instruments. And we become too much engrossed. Like, I know sometimes Prabhupada would stop the devotees from using a harmonium in kirtan, because the devotees would get too much engrossed in the sound of the harmonium rather than the holy name. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would sometimes have his devotees who had the worst voices chant, who couldn't even keep a tune. And so, because people were really getting involved in, let's say, good singers. Like sometimes you hear really good singers. And we get involved in this, like the external aspects. The singer may be pure, but sometimes we get involved in the external aspects and really not take the things to our heart. You know, it's more like enjoying the melody. Rather, we should enter into the depths of connection with the holy name. We want to connect with other people, we want to connect with ourselves, and we want to connect with Krishna, the holy name, and the deities, like that. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopijana Malava Yiribaru Dhagate. Gopijana Ballava Yiribaru Dhagate. Suranandana Rajajararanjana Yasodanandana Brajajanuranjana Yamunate Ramanachari Yamunate Ramanachari Jai Radha Madhuva Kunja Vihare Jai Radha Madhuva Kunja Vihare Gopijana Balaba Hirivado Dhagati Gopijana Balaba Hirivado Dhagati Yasodanandana Brajajanuranjana Yasodanandana Brajajanuranjana Yamunate Ramanachari Yamunate Ramanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihare Jaya Radha Madhuva Kunja Vihare Jai Gaur Premananda Haribol. All glories, the assembled devotees, all glories, the assembled devotees, all glories, the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premananda. Okay, so we'll continue. I just wanted to share with all of you, a realization I had coming here today. And it is partially Krishna conscious. So the realization I had, I was walking here today through the streets of Chicago, and as I told many of you, I went to the university here at Northwestern University. So I started to remember my being here in Chicago during the university years, going to Northwestern University. And then it struck me that that person who went to the university, their soul still exists, but that person is no longer exists. It's all gone. Everything in the past is gone. Everything I did in the past, obviously I did Krishna consciousness. That's not gone. Swapamapya Dharma Shatrayate Matobaya. But everything else, all the activities I did in the past, gone. So therefore, the conclusion in my mind was, I have to be here now, at present. And of course, Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about that too. He says, don't live in the past and trust no future, however pleasant, but live in the present. So of course, there's an impersonal, let's say, understanding or a path that many people follow. It's called mindfulness. You've heard about that before. But there's something true about that. Be aware right now of your feelings and needs, and don't dwell in the past. Or, of course, the past influences us today, but don't dwell in the past. Just be aware today. Connect to where you're at, what you're feeling, because that's where you're at now. And you can't change the past. It's gone. It's finished. Okay. Sharing the realization. So, here's some quotes from Prabhupada. And we're talking about independence today. Krishna consciousness movement, and some of you have heard these quotes before, is for training men to be independently thoughtful and competent in all types of departments of knowledge and action, not for making bureaucracy. Once there is bureaucracy, the whole thing will be spoiled. There must always be individuals striving, there's their autonomy again, and work and responsibility, competitive spirit, not that one shall dominate and distribute benefits to the others, and they do nothing but beg from you and you provide. Very important. Another point about blind following. So Bhagavad Gita, this is a quote from Prabhupada, from the lecture Prabhupada gave in San Francisco. Bhagavad Gita gives you full information so that you can accept God with your reason, with your argument, with your knowledge. It is not blind following. Krishna consciousness is not a sentiment. It is backed by knowledge and practical knowledge. Vijnanam, jnanam vijnanam sahitam. So without vijnana sahitam, and the process is to understand this knowledge, is to be a surrendered soul. Therefore, we disciple. Disciple means one who accepts discipline. Without accepting discipline, one cannot make any progress. It is not possible. Any field of knowledge, any field of activities, if you want to be aware scientifically and factually, then you should accept the controlling principle. So in other words, if you have some objective, then you can actually put yourself in a situation where you're controlled by certain principles or you've taken certain vows. Now we're going to go, actually I want to review what we did yesterday, just the 4 Ds of discommunication, the blocks of communication. And I'm going to ask for some volunteers. Who can give me or demonstrate for us what diagnosis means? Just, so can someone come up? Raise your hand if you want to demonstrate. Otherwise, I can do it. Yes, there's no problem. You can do it from there if you want. Give me an example of a diagnosis.
So I understood diagnosis as when I'm in a particular situation and someone else is behaving or speaking in a particular way, then I internally start diagnosing what their situation is or who they are.
Who they are.
And I start labeling them accordingly.
Yeah.
So if a person is, I guess, seemingly laggardly or walking or something, I think he's lazy or she's lazy.
Right.
Or he's unclean, moon cheating, whatever, I would start diagnosing who the person is.
Yes, and that diagnosis comes from the mind, not from the heart. So, diagnosis, that's the first thing. And, all right, thank you for that demonstration. So, you put a label on someone. Okay, the second one would be denial of responsibility. Give me an example. Someone give me an example? Yes.
I'm getting angry, I blame it on the other person.
What?
You are making me angry.
Yeah, I'm making you angry. Okay, that's denial of responsibility. I drink because I'm an alcoholic. You making me angry. You're making me frustrated, etc., like that. Or just following orders. Like the temple president, forgive me. Oh, forgive me. The temple president asked me to do this, to throw you out of the temple. It's not my fault. It's her fault. Okay. And then, of course, we have demands. Anyone think of a demand? Yes. Well, what is the difference between a demand and a request? This gets a little tricky.
When we put it as a request, the other person has a slight
But what's the difference? What's the difference? Let me give you a hint. What's the difference in mentality?
We're forcing someone to do it, to do something.
Yeah. And what happens if they don't do it?
It disconnects.
What?
That we are okay if they do or they don't.
Yeah, you're okay if they do or they don't. So it's the energy at which you say something, not so much the words. Can you do the RT? And if they say, no, I can't do it because I have to, whatever, okay, we'll find someone else or I'll do it. That's a request. And the demand would be, can you do the RT? And they say no. And then you would say, don't you understand? You're getting taken care of in this temple. You made a commitment to do everything, or, to listen to the temple. And Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita that one has to act as if in military discipline. You ever hear that quote before? Military discipline. So you're in the military. And if you're in the military, if you don't listen to your superior officer, what happens? Well, you get put in the jail, the brig, they call it. Or he yells at you. And so in the military, they have this basic training, which we go through. And if you even smile during the basic training, guess what happens? They say, soldier, wipe that smile off your face. Do 100 push-ups. Do we want that in Krishna consciousness? I don't think so. Not really. Okay, so, and then the final one is deserve. What's deserve mean? Yeah. What's that?
I deserve austerity, so I deserve the benefit.
Yes. I deserve a reward, or you deserve to be punished. Remember? So the essence of these four things, of course, it's going to be hard to remember all the time, the 4 Ds of discommunication. The essence is that any activity that disconnects us from connecting with someone's feelings and needs is a block in communication. Sometimes we talk about these 4. There's more than 4. Let me give examples of some other things that are blocks. You don't have to remember them. But just keep in mind what the result of a particular activity is. If it blocks your communication, it's a block of empathy. One thing is advising people, unless they ask for advice. Like, if someone is, let's say with the eating process, we're talking about eating healthily. So before the seminar began, both Mayapur and Champaga were eating sweets. And so one thing that could disconnect me from them, if I say, if I was you, which I did say, if I was you, I wouldn't eat those sweets. If I was interested in health, so that's sort of advice, unsolicited advice. If someone asks for advice, so Maharaj, how do you cook? How do you eat for health? Okay, that's one thing. But giving advice to people, unsolicited advice, particularly when it threatens the eating process, is a disconnect. Because they were thinking, we should never travel with him again. Another thing you could say, other things are like educating. You can say to someone when they have trouble, you say, think of it as a lesson you learned. Just giving someone advice rather than coming in tune with their feelings and needs. Empathy is to connect. Remember that. Anything that disconnects is really the opposite of empathy. Consoling is another one. Oh, it's so bad. You did the best you could do under these circumstances. That's also a disconnect, although it sounds like you're being very empathic and everything like that. But you're just like dealing with them as like a little kid. You're not respecting their particular feelings or needs, or shutting the people down. You know, someone said something, Prabhu, I'm having a hard time. And they say, oh, that's life. That's also another way of disconnect. Or interrogating people. Like, you know, when did you start feeling like that? Really? Or correcting. Correcting sometimes is required when you're doing some service in the temple. But when otherwise, and then the big one is, of course, the butt. You're butting people. Not butting with the head or with other parts of the body. But when you say, you did a good job, but, you know, the prasadam was really tasty, but. So when you use the word but, it actually is like saying whatever you did before or said before in the sentence has been negated. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So since we talked about
Give her microphone. The president.
you talked about autonomy a lot.
Okay. Just speak loudly.
Yeah, I have a loud voice. So you have been talking about autonomy. I understood that. But living in a community, where does this whole accountability, because our movement is all about you need to be accountable. So how do you understand accountability in context?
Well, it all has to be based on choosing to be accountable. You know, you made a choice to join here, and this is part of the social contract, or written or unwritten contract. Sometimes things need to be in writing. Otherwise, there's so much room for confusion and conflicts that can't be resolved. Like you mentioned to me yesterday, that when you sponsor an R1 worker here, for those of you who don't know what an R1 worker is, that's a temporary religious worker visa. And many people sometimes come with temporary religious worker visas because they want to exploit the economic development in America. So when she sponsors an R1 worker, she makes them sign a contract. This is what's required. And so everything's very clear. And they've agreed to do it. So they have volunteered to do it, and that's their obligation.
So it's better to have, like in an organization, to have that for every member who lives in the temple? Like not, because there are ones,
Yeah.
there are visas, so it's easy to make those kind of contracts because they are coming on a contract. But for instance, an American young lady or a young man want to join the temple, usually there's no contract they're writing or signing.
Yeah, but the expectation should be very clear. If they're not clear, I mean, we were talking about this yesterday too, that people join the Hare Krishna movement and the expectation, unspoken expectation, is that they will be taken care of from the womb to the tomb. You understand what that means? That they have nothing to worry about the rest of their lives. Prasadam will always be there. Their clothes will always be ironed. Isn't everything will be taken care of? I mean, it's a perfect life. You don't have to worry about finances. You don't have to worry about money. Wow. There's a problem with that too, because when you're in a situation like that, you become dysfunctional after some time. You know, after 20 years. In the army, it happens all the time. When people join an army and they're taken care of like that, and they get out and they can't figure out how to function in the real world. So, in any case, when people are in the temple, there should be written down, my belief is there should be written down expectations, responsibilities, and what they'll get out of it, isn't it? So they don't have unrealistic expectations, and you don't have unrealistic expectations from them. Thank you. Otherwise, there can be conflict. I think so. And there's also needs to be job description. We don't even have job description. You're a temple president. Do you have a job description? Oh, you do?
All our head of the department.
Oh, good. Job description, temple president means does anything at any time she's asked to do. That's an easy job description.
Exactly.
Okay.
Mine's the shortest.
It's the shortest, right? Just fills in any time. That's good. And listens to her husband all the time. So, yes, you avoid problems when you have job descriptions like that and expectations that are written out. And even in marriage, sometimes it's useful to have those. Be very clear about what you're expecting. Otherwise, it turns into demands, and the relationship becomes frayed. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, you have a question.
Marsh, this is not related to Matthew's question. On the same line of accountability, in looking at for a relationship where it needs an accountability, as a growing sadhaka, I may not know the consequences of it, may agree in the beginning, but as it grows, one identifies the needs. I can't do this. So is there something wrong to withdraw from the relationship because you cannot?
What relationship you're talking about right now?
Like a mentor relationship.
Oh, mentor relationship. Yes, we're not talking about the guru relationship, just mentor. Yeah, sometimes it may be required because the mentor, the relationship with the mentor is not fulfilling your particular needs. And you may not be fulfilling the mentor's particular needs in terms of that relationship either, so it may require a change. But that has to all be talked about. And the expectations in mentorship should also be very clear. Without clear expectations, there's conflict. Okay, any other questions before we go ahead? No? Okay, so now we're going to go through the process of empathic communication or nonviolent communication. And we've more or less gone through it before in an informal way, touching upon all these different things. And certainly we talked about observations, feelings, needs, strategies, and requests. But now we're going to go through it in a more organized way. So the first point that we get to is observations. When it's a process by which we can analyze our needs and try to satisfy or fulfill our needs through different strategies. But the first aspect is you observe something in a non-judgmental way. For example, what is the temperature in this room? Temperature in this room, whatever it is, I don't have a thermometer, but if I had a thermometer, you say the temperature in this room is so many degrees centigrade, so many degrees Fahrenheit. That's an observation. As there was one detective show on television a number of years ago, before any of you were born, and there was a sergeant called Sergeant Friday. I don't know if anyone saw this. You did. And what he would say when he was interviewing people, he said, "Just the facts, man." Anyone remember that? Just the facts. Don't tell me your impression. Don't tell me what you think of anything. Just the facts. So it's very specific, and you don't judge anything. Just specifically what happened, when it happened. Later on we'll get to the feelings. So I'm going to ask some questions here. There's certain statements that may be factual statements or observations, or they may be evaluations or judgments. 1. John, he's not a devotee. No, that's not part of it. John was angry with me yesterday for no reason. Why? It's not, specific in what way?
For no reason.
No reason, and there's another reason why it's a judgment. Angry. How do you know someone's angry?
Body language.
May be wrong. It may be just an anxiety. You may be interpreting anxiety as anger. So So in other words, that's not an observation. An observation would be, let's say I'm going to transform that into an observation. Yesterday, John told me you are a jerk. That's an observation. It happened. It happened yesterday. Exactly what he said. You are a jerk. Okay. We're going to transform each one of these, and we're going to ask you volunteers to transform. Yesterday evening, Devi Dasi bit her fingernails during class. Observation. Because it's specific. Next one. Das did not ask for my opinion during the meeting. Observation. Easy. My father is a good man. Judgment, observation? Judgment from the head. Now you could transform that. Who could transform that into a practical observation?
He did many good deeds.
Good deeds?
Many deeds.
Many deeds. What?
My father sent all his children to college.
Good. My father sent all of his children to college. Did your father send all of his children to college? No. I can't say he's a good man then. So that's an observation. Krishna Das works too much. What would be an observation?
I see Krishna Das work busy with many activities throughout the day.
That's not really specific.
Krishna Das works for 18 hours a day.
Today, Krishna Das worked a lot.
What's a lot?
Picked up many hours of service.
What's that?
Yesterday, Krishna Das worked from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay. That's an observation. Very specific. Not he works a lot. Anytime you use the word a lot, sometimes, always, these are not observations. No. Das is aggressive. Judgment. Why? It's a label. Now, how would you state that, or state something similar as an observation?
He drove fast when he was getting out of the parking lot.
He broke a fast?
Drove fast.
Oh, drove fast. Fast? What's fast?
He drove 40 miles above speed limit.
Yeah. Okay. He drove 40 miles above the speed limit while he was pulling out of the parking lot yesterday. Okay. Devi Dasi was first in line every day of this week. Observation. Das often doesn't brush his teeth. Is what? Judgment. Why? Often. Okay, so how would you put that? Observation as an observation. Now, often, you wouldn't use the word often as an observation. That's a judgment, yeah.
Usually, often, seldom, these are all judgments.
These are judgments, yeah. I would say, I have never seen Das brush his teeth. That's true. Or, Das's toothbrush has not been touched for 3 weeks. I've observed it. What's that?
Maharaj, it seems like at the point of speaking or communicating, rather than using a generalized words, it seems it's necessary of discriminating and speaking to the point. It seems very
Yeah.
discriminating power. Again, analyze to deeper degree of more of goodness is.
Yeah. Just making an observation, just seeing things without passing judgment. Yeah.
As I'm
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of almost like not who we are, but who I am. The words like often, usually, in my mind I observe something, but then there's the judgment so close to it right away.
Mm-hmm.
That pretty much all day I'm making judgments about other people.
Yeah, and that ultimately, when you make a judgment, Das never brushes his teeth, then that's really Das's Moochie. He's disgusting. He smells bad. There's all these things that come from that one particular judgment there. And then you disconnect yourself from Das. So, so the point is that these particular judgments, other than observations, disconnect you from the person. Like when you make these judgments, even on yourself, you could do that, I'm always making mistakes, I'm always forgetting things. I remember my mother, this is my mother again, she usually uses my mother. She made this judgment on me that really, just sticks with me to this day. She said, if your head wasn't screwed on right, you'd lose it. You ever hear that one? So therefore, that's a judgment, and therefore I'm thinking, I lose things all the time. And there's these self-fulfilling prophecies, too. What's that? You're in ecstasy. I thought he was just like dancing. See, that was a judgment. So these self-fulfilling prophecies, when you actually make a judgment on people, or they make it on themselves, sometimes they live up to that judgment. He's crazy. And then if he hears that, or if he makes that judgment on himself, he'll actually act crazy because he's fulfilling that self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like people go to the astrologer. Not that I don't like astrologer. That's actually double negative. But anyway, that means I don't like it. Anyways, translate it. And this astrologer will tell us something. They'll say, I can see you're going to have trouble in your marriage in the next 6 months. You're going through your Saturn. Anyone's gone through a Saturn period here? You're going through your Saturn period. And he says, oh no, it's my Saturn period. I'm supposed to have trouble. But you know something interesting? This has nothing to do with the seminar. There's a story about Hanuman that you may be aware of. You know Hanuman? Hanuman. You know what I'm talking about? Hopefully. So Hanuman was approached one time by Saturn and say, okay, it's your time for the Saturn period. And Hanuman said, okay, I surrender. You can sit on my head. Does anyone know the story? So Hanuman started to put a lot of big rocks on his head. And Saturn said, stop, stop. And then Hanuman said, Hare Krishna. Prabhupada ki jai. Power to the Prabhus. So then Hanuman said, okay, I'll stop if you can reduce my Saturn period to 7 minutes. So that's what happened. So if you worship Hanuman, has nothing to do with the seminar, but anyway, just thought I'd add it. If you worship Hanuman, then your Saturn period becomes 7 minutes. It becomes a good period. Remember that. Very important spiritual instruction. And Prabhupada also said, if you chant the holy name, then with the tip of his toe, Krishna can kick away so many Rahus. So we don't worry about astrology too much. Otherwise, if we start hearing these self-fulfilling prophecies, and of course I started talking about it in regard to judgments, then somehow the judgments come true. You can't control your senses. Mayapur, you can't control your senses. You ate that cheesecake. Anyway, so then he hears that, and his senses won't be able to be controlled. Okay, so let's go. You have a question? Yeah.
So we're talking about words, and we're talking of transforming our words from
Yeah.
judgment to observation.
We didn't see him.
We didn't see him brushing. I mean, there's still, it seems like there's still that judgment, you know, even though the words are transformed.
Yeah, no, there's still, there could be a judgment. But then we have to go through the rest of the process. Like, when I saw, we'll just skip ahead for a second. When I saw that Das didn't touch his toothbrush for 3 years, okay? I'm not going to pay for his dentist. I'm feeling disgusted because I have a need for cleanliness and I want the devotees to be cared for properly. So I'm taking responsibility.
And we're talking more of a consciousness of judgment.
It's a consciousness, not the words. But words shape consciousness. We think in language. I mean, I'll give you my practical realization about thinking in language. For example, generally I speak English. I'm also bilingual. I speak Spanish. So when I go to South America, I go to Mexico, and I start speaking Spanish, I really get into it for a day or two, I start thinking in Spanish. And the personality changes. You know, I start wanting to do the Spanish dances and flamenco and everything. No, not really. But, and those of you, many of you are bilingual. You know, you speak Hindi and English. You know, if you're here a long time, you start thinking in English, and your personality is different. Because language shapes consciousness. So words are important, even though it's the feeling behind the words that's important, but the word, it's actually, it goes in both directions. Words are important. Like if you, let's say if you like someone, let's say let's take for example, you know, theoretically, if I like Mayapur, if I said, you're a demon, if I say it enough times, you know, really start to think, he's a demon. He looks like, you look with that beard, you know, he hasn't shaved his face since a long time. And the hair, you know. And he just looks, the shape of his face is just really bad, you know. Because you use the same words. I mean, just like a famous politician who should remain nameless. He calls people liars, you know, negative things on Twitter. And after a while, you tell a lie. Anyway, you tell a lie enough times, it becomes true in people's minds. That's his technique. You know, fake news, fake news, fake news. And after a while, oh, fake news. CNN is fake news or whatever. I'm not saying it's real news. All I'm saying is it works. You've actually affected someone's consciousness. So words are important, although it's the feeling. Whoops. Uh-oh. That's incompetent. It's incompetent. All right. Let's see another one. The temple president complains when I talk to her. No. Because you're not giving a specific time and you're not saying specifically what she said, and you're qualifying whatever she said as complaining. You could say, yesterday when I talked to the temple president, she said, you talk too much. Just get to work, you bum. So that,
In this temple, it's the other way around. The temple president talks a lot.
so that's a judgment too. Let's be specific. Because if you say the temple president talks a lot, that means she's a big mouth. You're putting a label, you know, if I hear that about you, she talks a lot. As soon as you said that, I'm thinking differently about you. I'm thinking differently about you now. I'm thinking I better not talk to her anymore. Because she talks a lot. She's a big mouth. A blabber mouth. Motor mouth. You hear all these expressions? So we have to be careful because there's implicit messages going along with judgments. Even though it may appear to be an innocent judgment, well, he never brushes his teeth. The implicit message is he's moochy, he's dirty, he's disgusting. So that's why it's dangerous to do these things if we're trying to connect to people. If we're not trying to connect to people, that's fine. We have to be honest about what we're trying to do. Our sankalpa there. Then go ahead and make judgments. If you're having fun, go ahead and have fun. Okay, so I want to go around the room and ask different people, whoever volunteers, to make an observation about what's happening right now, where they are right now here in this room. Give me an observation. Who wants to give an observation? Yes.
So right now I am in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness Temple in Chicago. Sorry, I didn't recognize there was a microphone. So I'm in Ishkan Temple in Chicago right now. I'm on the second floor. I think there's prashad is being made in the other room.
Did you observe it?
I don't know. I was told prashad was being made.
Oh, you were told. That's an observation. That's good. Good.
Pretty happy. That's what's going on right now. Anyone else would like to share?
Yeah, so let me go through what he just did. He did some observations, and he also went to his feelings, and he also went to his needs. What were his needs? Association with devotees. So he actually did this process. Thank you very much. You demonstrated everything, and your strategy is to attend and participate as much as you can because you just moved from far away. Very good. Who else wants to share what's going on for them right now? Make an observation. Just a very simple observation. Yeah.
The chart of the needs it's been repeatedly falling down and not being stable.
Repeatedly? How many times did it fall down?
2 times.
2 times, okay. That's an observation.
It fell down 2 times, and your disciple fixed it right now.
How do you know he's my disciple? That weird guy sitting there fixed it. That's a judgment. I'll tell you something really funny that happened about judgments. I was having cataract surgery, and they gave me this sedative, which happened to be truth serum, sodium pentothal. That was one of, I don't really know what that is. And so he was there. He was out in the waiting room, and the nurse basically said, "Do you want anyone to come in to be with you at this time?" And I said, "Yeah, there's someone out there, and just look for the weird guy out there." So the nurse goes out to the waiting room and takes a look at it and keels over laughing practically, isn't it? So, of course, that wasn't precisely a judgment. That was joking. You can joke like that sometimes. So you don't want to get too much into like empathic communication. That's a judgment. That's an observation. In different relationships, there can be some teasing and a flow. Okay. Anyone else? What's happening for them right now, at this instant? Not what happened 5 minutes ago with the falling of the papers, but what's happening right now? Make an observation right now. Anyone? Yeah. That's right. You're sitting on the chair. Okay. Another observation? Yes. Yeah, I guess that's good. Okay, another one. There's a bird chirping outside. That's good. Okay, just one more. Any other observations?
Not wearing socks.
What's that?
I am not wearing any socks.
That's an observation.
You're abusing my pretender ass.
That's a judgment. That's a judgment. So when he says that, that means I'm an abuser. That's the way it gets translated. I abuse people like him, who are weird. So, okay. So let's go quickly. So the second component, we make an observation, and then we go to our feelings. Now, as I mentioned before, feelings are from the heart. And I'm trying to get my list of feelings so you get an idea. We got a lot of feelings, and most of it, these are feeling charts, which you don't need to keep with you, because if you did, you'd be really weird. That's a judgment. So, here are some feelings that we will feel if our needs are met. Just to give you an idea, there's at least 100 of them in this chart. Usually we have a very small vocabulary of feelings. You know, I'm happy, I'm sad. Okay. And that's about it. But there's this unbelievable number of feelings. I'll just give you an example. I'm absorbed, I'm adventurous, I'm affectionate, I'm alert, I'm alive, I'm amazed, I'm amused, animated, I'm appreciative, I'm ardent, astonished, breathless, enlivened, invigorated, involved, serene. It's like all the colors in the spectrum. And the unpleasant feelings are things like I'm afraid, I'm aloof, I'm angry, I'm dull, I'm leery, I'm startled, I'm surprised, I'm terrified, I'm tired, I'm panicky, I'm hesitant. So you got all these amazing feelings, just like you have colors in the spectrum. And to become or be empathic means to learn the language of feelings. So, okay, so let's go around the room and ask, how do you feel right now? Just one word. Who wants to volunteer? Yes. Yeah. Good. Enthusiastic. That's a joke.
I'm feeling hungry.
You're feeling hungry? That's good. Okay.
I haven't had lunch yet.
You're feeling hungry. Very good. That's a feeling. Okay. Another one? We just want one word.
I'm thirsty.
You're thirsty. Okay. Here we go. Did you pass this to her? Okay. Hungry I can't satisfy, I'm sorry. Who has another feeling? Yes. What? Happy. Happy. That's good. That's one word feeling. Excited.
Desperate for the association of Srimati Radhika and Vrindavan to the university.
All right, yeah, desperate. That's good. Okay, who has another feeling? Yeah. Energized. That's good. Energized. Blissful. Interested. Anything else? Any other? No one else has any feelings in here. It's a judgment. Mayapur, how are you feeling?
Abused.
That's a judgment. A feeling would be sad, depressed, hopeless. You know, so therefore, it's good to have judgments. So here's what we added yesterday, or this morning, what Champaka added today. This is his judgments. So if he says, I'm feeling abused, that's his judgment. and I'm an abuser. Then it goes down to he has a need for compassionate dealings, right? So that's how I would deal with it. If he says, I feel abused, I would say, you have a need for compassion. You have a need for love, for understanding. You feel better? No. Okay. So expressing feelings means really we're expressing our vulnerability. You know, when you say how I feel, rather than using the expression, I feel like you're an idiot. Sorry about that. I feel like you're a good cook. That's not a feeling. That's a judgment. So we want to really stick with the heart. The principle is we connect with the heart. We don't connect with judgments. We connect with the heart, with people and Krishna. So, let's see. Oh, here are some questions. So these are following statements, and we're going to determine, are they expressions of feelings? I feel, let's say someone says, I feel that you don't love me. Is that a feeling? Judgment, obviously. I am sad that you are leaving. That's a feeling. I'm sad, and you're leaving. That's an observation. You're leaving. I feel scared when you say that. Feeling. Good. So now you're understanding feelings. When you don't greet me, I feel neglected. Judgment. Because it's not how you feel. You're judging that you're being neglected. I am happy that you can come here. You are disgusting. That's a judgment. I feel like hitting you. What? Hitting, not hating. Hitting you. I feel like hitting you. No. Like hitting. It's not a feeling. I feel angry. Therefore, I want to hit you. Okay, I feel misunderstood. Judgment. I feel good about what you did for me. Feeling. I'm worthless.
Go back to I'm feeling misunderstood.
That's judgment.
So how do you transform into a feeling?
How do you transform? I'm feeling confused. That's how I would say. I was feeling confused. Did you understand me? Would you clarify what you heard me say? That's how I would deal with it. Okay. We did that. Okay, feelings. And then the third step is needs. And I think we talked about needs extensively, right? Didn't we go through that? Where's our needs chart? Up here. We all have, just to reiterate for some of you who weren't here yesterday, we all have all these needs. So every feeling we have, and even every judgment we have, reflects upon needs met or not met. If I'm feeling scared, I have a need for protection. If I'm feeling angry, I may have a need for autonomy. If I'm feeling that my life has no meaning, then I may have a need for creativity, meaning, self-worth, or Krishna consciousness. Obviously, Krishna consciousness. Okay? We talked needs, we got into, and we also talked about requests, right? Requests are the opposite of demands. So this goes in two ways. with others and with ourselves. This chart goes in two ways. So when we're dealing with ourselves, self-empathy, remember I did the 4-chair exercise yesterday? Those of you who were here? When someone, Nityananda Pran, insulted me, that's a judgment. When he said, you were whatever he said, isn't it? You stupid old man. So, when he said that, let's go through the observation. When he said that, I felt sad, depressed, disturbed, because I have a need for understanding, a need to contribute, a need for connection, a need for meaning, etc. And therefore, when I explained or understood my own needs, I became more balanced in my approach and was able to go to his needs. And that's from this angle of view, angle of vision. When he said this, was he feeling this? Because he had a need for that. When he said, you are whatever he said, observation, was he angry? Because he had a need for understanding, or whatever his need was. And then my strategy in that case might be to ask him, would you like me to repeat what I just said, or would you like me to change my method of presentation? And that's the strategy here, or I can help him understand his own needs. Does everybody understand the whole process now? Yes, Mr. on the front.
Until a few minutes ago, I was understanding it as that in yesterday's 4-chair example,
Yeah.
when you you recognized what you were feeling
Mm-hmm.
and what were your needs, then the strategy is how you go about making sure your needs are met.
Yeah.
Is that what?
Yeah, I would meet my own needs either internally or seek some other method of meeting my own needs in a strategy.
And at the same time,
My strategy at that particular point was doing it internally, recognizing my own needs. That was enough for me. But in many cases, you know, if I had a need for understanding, let's give an example. If I had a need for understanding, a need for love, then maybe I'd get a pet. It's actually funny. It's actually true that there's psychological studies of people with pets. I'm not telling you all get pets. It's moochie. That's a judgment. But there's studies that people who have pets, or people who have good relationships, you know, if you don't have a good relationship with your wife, get a dog. But anyway, so there's studies that illustrate people live longer, on the average of 5 to 7 years longer, when they have someone or something that they could love. So anyway, I'm not going to get a pet. I already have enough. So in other words, I would deal with my strategies, with my needs first, with whatever strategy.
at the same time you were thinking of me, because I had said some things you were trying to understand my feelings.
After I dealt with my own feelings and needs.
And then you were thinking of how my needs would be facilitated.
Yes.
You were asking the question of, do you want me to repeat it again? Would you like
Right.
to change my method, etc.?
Mm-hmm.
Is that?
That's it. But first, the point I was making yesterday is, first you have to take care of your own needs. Like if you're hungry, if you're thirsty, if something is really bothering you because of a lack of something, it's going to be hard to be empathic with other people. Like, let's say right now, if I was very tired, then it would be hard to be thinking of even the subject matter of what I'm presenting, what to speak of being empathic with other people. But, you know, when I brought that water over to her, it fulfilled my need to help people, to connect with people. How did you feel when I brought the water over? Empathy. Well, I know. How did you feel? Happy. Yes. And what need did that fulfill? That's the emotion or the feeling. But you have one of these basic needs. Let me read some of them. Acceptance or community or love, support, trust. What? Love. That's a big need. And I hate to admit, even sannyasis have that need. But there's different strategies. It's not that all the ladies say, wow, there's a candidate. Anyway, so, let's look up, what's your birthday, Maharaj? There's different strategies because, obviously what you're thinking of wouldn't meet other needs. Like Krishna consciousness. Anyways, so there's different strategies. And I have loving relationships with people. I have that need. I love to connect. Like when I brought you the water, that was fulfilling my need to love because that's part of my needs. I'm aware of my needs. When you're aware of your needs, you're going to be balanced. And you're not going to be taking an advantage is that when you actually know this need language, you're not going to be looking for strategies that are really counterproductive. Every one of us has a need. Brahmacharis, of course, there's ways to fulfill your needs. Your relationships with each other, exchanging prasadam. I mean, it's really nice if you help another brahmachari, give them prasadam, or if someone's in the hospital. I mean, this is a big thing that devotees haven't really learned to do to a fullest extent. If a devotee is in trouble, a devotee's in the hospital, a devotee's in the hospice, to go and help them. And when you fulfill that need of love, compassion, connection, that person will never forget. I just gave the example of when I was in the hospital. There's one person who came, wasn't Mayapur. He was there, but he has to come. That's his duty. So it doesn't really count. So he's vowed to do it. So anyway, when someone came who I didn't expect to come and I didn't ask to come, it was a very intense bonding experience when they did that. And I just wow, that really fulfilled my need for connection, for love, for relationship. So anyway, important point. So who has another question about this before we go on? About the process. Before we can try to be empathic with others' needs, we got to take care of our own needs. You can skip over some of these steps. Sometimes you go directly to the needs. Sometimes you go to the judgments and you connect that to the needs. But the main thing is to make strategies or to facilitate, when you're being compassionate with others, strategies for them understanding their strategies to fulfill their needs, and then people will be happy, satisfied, peaceful, and be able to execute Krishna consciousness, if that happens to be their desire. So, any questions? Yes. Yes, temple president. That's a judgment.
When you were giving the example, your own personal example of the need that you had to be in a relationship and feeling love. But in devotees, different individuals' need for love is expressed in different ways.
Yes.
So when one is reciprocating and the person who is receiving may not understand, that's a loving gesture from the other person. So what's happening there?
We don't have to understand it. There's no need of going up here. When someone does something for you without being asked, or let's say if it's a request or it's a voluntary thing like that, then you actually feel good inside. Even if you don't put a label on it, like, oh, this is love. Not that you have to do that all the time. That makes life kind of weird. You know, if you keep saying to everybody, I have a need for love, I have a need for this, you fulfill my need for companionship, you fulfill my need for play, for fun. You know, life gets really weird. But to be aware that we have basic needs and not be vulnerable. To admit, you know, I have that need for companionship. I also have a need for autonomy. You know, just it means being able to be aware and being able to admit it. Okay? We have another question back there. Oh.
So, Maharaj, I wanted to know when we are connecting, so it's between two people. So, one thing is that, the example that you were giving of water.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that way, there's a connection between two people. But sometimes I have noticed that it is sometimes hard to receive. Like some people just like to give and give and give, like they want to serve others, but then they have issue in accepting things. I think that I have that kind of a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But like, how is it? Like, is it a need or what's behind what's happening? So.
Well, we have a need to reciprocate with others. Reciprocal relationships with others.
So is it possible that it can be missing in some people?
Yes. Not the need is missing, but they may not be aware of it. They may be conditioned in such a way that they're in denial of a need. We talked about that yesterday with Maslow's quotes. You know, we're in denial that we have a specific need. Then it can come out as some psychological aberration even. For example, I was with Marshall Rosenberg for some time, and I saw him deal with people who had what we normally diagnose as psychological problems, which is really interesting. And I asked him about this, and he said one of the problems in psychology is that people are diagnosing. There's this thing in psychology called the DSM, the Diagnostic Manual. And generally, the psychologist or a psychiatrist, they want to put a label on people. He's a manic depressive, he's a, whatever. They put the label on someone, and then they see this person as the label. Even the doctors who are dealing with physical illnesses, they go into the hospital and they don't treat you like a person sometimes. They say, oh, there's a cancer sitting in that bed. There was actually an interesting movie a while ago called Patch Adams. Has anyone seen that movie? No. It's about a doctor who treated people like people. You seen the movie? No. Anyway. Yeah, Robin Williams. And I met the actual doctor myself. And he was like that in real life. So he treated people like people, and he had much better results than when he treated people as diseases. So in psychology, many times, you treat people in terms of the diagnosis. Whereas in many cases, unless there's some physiological thing going on, in many cases, it's just unmet needs. And the person is in denial, or the circumstances don't allow the person to fulfill their particular needs for one reason or another. And I saw Marshall Rosenberg deal with people with psychological challenges, and they were able to overcome them or deal with them or become normalized because they became aware of their needs. Yes? That's unusual circumstances. If you think outside the box, there will, I can't say always, but they'll generally, in most cases, be a way to fulfill a need. I mean, give me an example, if you are willing, of a need that you can't fulfill. As a brahmachari. Marriage is not a need. Let me make it clear. Marriage is not a need. You all did things that weren't needed to do today. You wasted your human form of life.
Because autonomy goes away.
I know. No, marriage is a strategy that some people choose, I mean, joking aside, some people choose to fulfill needs. It's a general strategy. There's nothing wrong with it. They choose it for fulfilling certain needs. You know, companionship, other things. Autonomy, forget about, like you said. Let's take away that way. No, not really. Because if you have a marriage where there's no autonomy, then you have a very bad marriage. You're something that's going to maybe break apart. There has to be respect for each person, trust in a marriage for a marriage to work. So give me an example. Let's say a brahmachari, hypothetical brahmachari.
Let's just say healthy diet, for instance.
Healthy what?
Healthy diet.
Healthy diet, okay.
And
Well, there's my favorite subject matter again. Close your ears. Healthy diet, yeah.
in various circumstances, one may
You're living in a Hare Krishna temple.
having no personal funds, and also having some service or what have you that inhibits, by endeavoring for the ideal healthy Ayurvedic diet, you have to, one may have to sacrifice so many other things. So at what point is that an over endeavor to fulfill that need for that?
Well, what you have to do, not have to do, what you could do as a strategy, you go to your friendly local temple president. There's a label there, friendly, compassionate,
Whatever solution you give, I'm really back to you.
open-minded. Anyways, that's good. All these it's making her feel more compassionate and open-minded, like that. It's manipulative. What I just did is very manipulative. Oh, you're very compassionate. You're very open-minded. You're very kind. She's like, very great sannyasi. So you go to the temple president, your situation. You explain your need. And the temple president is supposed to make sure there's more devotees, happier devotees, healthier devotees, right? I mean, that's the job description as far as I'm concerned. So that's your strategy. Let's say it doesn't work. The president says, Maya, don't you understand? You eat prasadam. There's a lot of quotes like this. You eat prasadam. Krishna is the fire of digestion. And if Krishna wants, you could eat rocks and be healthy. Because Krishna doesn't want. So, if she answers like that, what are you going to do? Then you may have to make some other arrangement. You go to the government here in Chicago.
Go to North Carolina.
Yeah, go to North Carolina. We need more brahmacharis there. So, you go and say, can I get some food stamps? I mean, there's different strategies. I'm just telling you. There's always strategies. Or you call your mommy on the phone. Say, Mommy? That's the best way to manipulate your mother. When soon as even my mother, she was 91 years old. If I just say, Mommy, I can get anything I want from her. She says, well, you're a grown man. You can do it yourself. But you are my mommy. Isn't it? It works like that. So you can say, Mommy, I need some things for my health. Would you be willing to send me $500 a month? Whatever. There are strategies in your particular case? I mean, I can understand if you're in prison in Iraq, but the Hare Krishna temple is not like a prison in Iraq. Hopefully not. I mean, in my life, I have always been able to find strategies to fulfill my needs. And I was a brahmachari for so many years, living in ashram, sharing clothes, not having to match a pair of socks for years. You know, because you get a big bin with all of your clothes in it, and you just pick out in the morning. You don't have time to pick out the same color. But I always found that I'll give the example. I was in New Vrindavan, and I was assisting his father was Sri Kirti, as I mentioned before, assisting his father to cook. I had a need for healthy prasadam. And all we got in New Vrindavan, those who were in Gita Nagari know the story, all we got in New Vrindavan was oat water in the morning. Not even the oats. That was breakfast. Oat water. And the oat water was coming from the oats that were for horses. Because they didn't want to spend money on human oats, so we buy this big, 100-pound bags of oats for horses. And in the morning, they just, put 2 cups in for 200 devotees. So anyway, so before I worked in the kitchen, I was freaking out. Because I had need for, something substantial. And actually, lunch was just weeds that we picked in the field and added them to water with some dal beans in it. That was it. Serious. I'm very serious about that. New Vrindavan in, 1972. It was really austere. And a bath was going to the stream when it was ice and cracking through the ice and pouring the water on yourself in the morning. And the temple president, when I complained, I said, "It's freezing." He said, "It's ecstatic." And when I got sick one day and tried to sleep a little extra, he started beating me with a stick. Anyway, you think it's bad here. It's really So I had a need for something tasty, food like that. So first of all, I wasn't working in the kitchen. So then, first thing that I do is go through the deity garbage. Because they prepared nice things for the deities, like mangoes and everything like that. But there's always a lot left of the mango, the apple cores, and everything like that. So I ate nicely, had a strategy. And then after that, I said, I really want to cook in the kitchen. And so that was my way of fulfilling my need of getting all the nice prasadam I wanted. So I made strategies. How's that sound? So there is a strategy. I guarantee, here you are in America, there will be a strategy fulfilling your needs. Unless you can think of circumstances where there's not maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, the question.
Going back to the topic of diagnosing people.
Yeah.
I have education and work experience in human resources.
Yes.
There are very good tools that cost thousands of dollars that companies get when they're recruiting people, and they really, my experiences, you put these leaders through these leadership assessments, and they're actually on the ball in terms of
Yeah.
their performance, and the leaders don't have that feedback really. It's just a diagnostic tool that they went through.
Yeah.
So it's not a self-fulfilling prophecy. So there's all this thing about type A personality and extrovert. It seems like actually these labels are correct in some cases.
Well, yeah, in the business world, you don't need to, but you can do those things and they can help. But we're not teaching management right now. We're teaching with connecting to people. I'm not teaching you how to manage your corporation or how to manage, but how to connect to people.
Isn't it true then also in the devotee world that, for example, there could be type A personalities, in our community that
People have, I would, rather than using type A personalities, et cetera, like that, I would say people have different propensities and abilities. I'd be reluctant to use those designations in a devotee community. There's a better way to deal with it in terms of someone's inclinations, abilities, skill set like that. Or you can say that someone has a body like a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. There's that type of designation. It's useful sometimes in management. But in connecting to people, if I see someone as a Brahmin, Vaishya, Kshatriya, Shudra, I'm disconnected on a personal basis from that person. I need to see that person as a spirit soul connected to Krishna. Sarvapadi vinir muktam tadvatrena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti shate. In different roles, yes, we do need to use these designations. Just practical world. I mean, like, you know, there's men and there's women, and there's a different bathroom for each of the sexes. That's fine. That's practical management. But when I'm talking to you, I mean, just practically, when I'm talking to you, I'm not seeing you as your designation. I'm not seeing you as a woman. I'm seeing you as a spirit soul that I'm trying to help bring to Krishna. You know, not bring to Krishna because you're already Krishna conscious, but connect you with this teaching here. That's how I'm seeing. And I think that's how devotees should see beyond the body when they're dealing with each other. And if we're dealing with people as their bodies, then we're racist or sexist or whatever. We have to see the soul within the body. And so part of our job, apart from, you know, all these designations that we have in the temple, you know, temple president and everything like that, is to connect to people. Our real business is to connect to people. That will bring people. I mean, that's what brought me to Krishna consciousness when Prabhupada connected with me. It's connection. That's what we're looking for. And yes, sometimes in management designations, you know, type A personality. What type am I? Zero personality. All right, so, yes, you have another question?
Thought process, the question, rather than saying it outside. What is this process of discrimination? For me, it is more of like putting the labels. So how do I discriminate without putting the labels of whatever you're teaching right now?
Well, you discriminate in terms of what activities you're talking about. In terms of social interaction, or what is the need? Why are you discriminating? I'm asking you that.
I want to follow that principle so that I'm very strong in Krishna consciousness. I want to be strong in Krishna consciousness, and thereby I want to follow the principle of being able to discriminate and draw a boundary for myself.
So you have to draw a boundary between good association and bad association. Is that what you're talking about? Something like that?
Yes.
Okay. So we observe someone's behavior, that someone is smoking marijuana, or someone smoked marijuana yesterday, or someone. Anyway, you observe that, and you understand that because he's doing that, that and association with him will not fulfill your need for Krishna consciousness. But if you deal with him as a druggie, that will disconnect you from being able to help him. I don't like to see people in terms of their activities. I like to see people, you designate people in terms of their activities. I like to see people as spirit souls that are struggling on the path to either become Krishna conscious or they don't know about Krishna consciousness, just to see people as part and parcel of Krishna. Sarvapadi vinir muktam tadapatatvrena nimalam. Be aware of their activities and act accordingly in terms of your own needs. But as soon as you see people as a nonsense, then that disconnects you. As soon as I see him as weird, it disconnects me, even though he is. So I want to do a few things before we break this morning, because I want to have some fun here, because we did enough. We did enough theory today. So I'm going to ask Mayapur Chandra, that's him, and Champakalata to show examples of interaction, disputes, disagreements, without, this is practical, down to earth, what you're seeing happens every day. No. Without using empathic communication, and then using empathic communication, and then role-playing, which is even more powerful. So, empathic communication would mean that they're going through the steps of observing what the other person is saying or doing, understanding their feelings and the other person's feelings, and connecting everything to the needs. And you'll see how that can resolve conflicts very, very quickly. Okay. So, you ready? You've thought of a conflict?
Okay, so this is actually a true-to-life conflict.
Uh-oh.
Although you will be acting it out. What you see here isn't necessarily how we dealt with the conflict. Well, until we get to how we're supposed to, then that's definitely how we dealt with it.
Quick question. So I'd just like to affirm what's going on here. So there's a conflict where you guys are role playing a conflict, and you guys are going to demonstrate how to solve such a conflict using the principles within that diagram.
Right. Right. First they're going to show how not to resolve it. Okay. What normally happens when you use judgments. When you're just like putting a label on people. Okay. It's all yours.
Okay, so my mother's first great-grandchild, our grandson, was just born, and she's planning to come and visit him and her granddaughter and grandson-in-law. But it turns out that they are moving from the state of Washington just before she's due to arrive there. So she's very disappointed, and she calls her grandson-in-law, and she says, "I'm really sad that I won't get to meet my great-grandson. Can you promise me that you'll bring him," and yeah, this is kind of a demand, "that you'll come and you'll bring my great-grandson up to our nephew, her grandson's wedding in Michigan?" And he says, "Of course, Grandma." He says, "Definitely, I promise. We'll come up for the wedding." And so what followed?
So first of all, you have this thing. Why the heck do the wives always side with their mother? You know, this lady, she does not understand what's going on in the situation. You got a young boy and a young girl. Where the heck do you get off supporting your mother who wants to force these poor goofy kids to spend money they don't have? What are you thinking?
Well, they can earn the money. It's an important thing that my mother gets to meet her great-grandson, and I want my grandson at the wedding.
Interruption. Because if you're fighting, you don't let them finish.
All right? Okay, so next you're going to try to resolve this using empathic communication?
Okay, well, our practice fight was actually much worse. he said to me, for 21 years you've been siding with your mother and not letting me have any say-so. And I said, how can you make a generalization like that? Now you're lying about our whole marriage. So it actually was worse. Okay, so empathic communication. So first would be recognizing our own needs and then recognizing the need of the person that we're in conflict with. So we were going to jump straight to understanding each other's needs. How should we do it?
Understand your own needs first.
Okay. So I have a need for connection, community, which is very much associated with family. I have a need for celebration. And to me, the idea of being at a wedding where all the family members are there except for my own daughter and the first great-grandson of the family is like devastating. So I'm feeling really disappointed at even the thought that that might happen, that they won't be there. And then as far as his needs...
Let him explain it.
What's my need? I want to see these people respected, and I have a desire for myself that people are respected. To me, that's very important, that their autonomy and that they're not being commanded to do something, that they're being respected. For me, for myself, seeing that that wasn't happening was switching off any sort of compassion and empathy, because I was just too frustrated. Why isn't this person understanding my need to see them respected?
So you were basically feeling empathic towards your son-in-law and daughter that financially this would be a struggle for them, considering they just moved twice and he doesn't have an established job and they just had a baby, and how are they going to pay several $100s to go to a wedding? So it wasn't really your own needs, but like feeling their need for autonomy and space and time to figure their lives out before they're pressured to do things.
Good.
Is that right?
I'm going to step into your shoes.
And yeah, now that she's understood your needs, then you can understand her needs and you process your own needs.
So I'm going to step into your shoes and do that. I'm a mother, and I have my one daughter, only one child. And when you have that sort of situation, it's been 21 years, you only have one child. Of course I'm going to be desperate to see our family come together when our one child has her first child. The sense of community is very strong, and I very much have a strong desire that community and loving exchanges are respected.
Good. So how do you both feel about your conflict after you expressed each other's needs and understood your own needs?
I feel understood.
Yeah. Great.
And they did come to the wedding.
And incidentally, they are grandparents. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
I thought I heard it wrong at first.
No, they are grandparents. And I've known Champaka since she was a little tiny girl.
And I still feel like, why the heck were they forced to go to that dang wedding?
All right, so now we want to do...
My mother also retracted her demand, so everything worked out. It was a win-win situation. She said, I take back my demand that you made the promise. Please only come if you actually want to. And Krishna sent him a job
So now we're going to show a very powerful means of understanding each other's needs and feelings. We're going to do role playing. Role playing means that you look at the world through someone else's eyes. This is very, very powerful. Whenever you're having a conflict with someone, it's sometimes useful to do it. Sometimes if the conflict is too heavy, you have to wait before doing this. Sometimes you can have someone else play the part of the person you're having the conflict with. It's a very powerful technique. So right now, Mayapur is going to become Champaka. You got a sorry? No. And Champaka is going to become Mayapur, and they're going to take each other's positions, and then in this way they will understand each other's needs. You got it? Okay, ready, set, go. You have to do this. I'm just teasing. Yeah, same thing, but as each other. You are Mayapur now.
Okay, well, my need for autonomy is much, much greater than my need for community and for, interdependence. Autonomy is above it, see? It's more important than for me. And so not being told that I have to do such and such by my mother-in-law is pretty important to me. I need to make my own decisions in life and not have my mother-in-law telling me how to live my life, or especially not telling me how to live my life through my wife.
Whew. That's a tough one. How do you feel when you hear that, Mayapur? I mean, Champaka. How are you feeling?
I'm sad because I don't feel that my need for acceptance and community is being appreciated.
How about understanding? That's a big one. For understanding. So, all right, so you express that to her. I'm sad because my needs for this, and that. And Champaka, when you hear about his needs and his feelings, how do you feel? You're at Mayapur now, anyway.
I feel that I want to hear him out and try to understand, her, and try to be a friend.
Oh, good. See, as soon as he starts expressing it in terms of feelings and needs, then the other party really feels that they want to hear. And Champaka's acting like a man right now. And so men usually don't want to understand. If you're going to put labels on people. Wait a second. And one of the big needs that ladies have oftentimes is to be understood. And so now Champaka, as a man, is actually responding to that need to be understood. And sometimes people will put labels on people who are talking about their needs, or especially the need to be understood. They'll call them needy. You are very needy. But needy, of course, that's a label right there. But people do have needs, and they are needy. Everyone is needy because they have needs. And once those needs are being fulfilled, or there's strategies to fulfill the needs, people can be more peaceful. Any quick questions before we break for the morning? Then we have one more session this afternoon. You can go back to your chairs. There you go. This was a true-to-life drama. Except they didn't do the switching in real life. Yes?
Trying to understand the difference between emotion and feeling.
Emotions and feelings are synonymous. But judgments and feelings are not. It's really important to understand that there's emotions, happy, sad, depressed, angry are all emotions, and they're also feelings. Something from the heart without going through the brain. That's how I usually explain it. Yes?
Judgments are synonymous with diagnosis.
Yeah. Some form of diagnoses. And judgments are expressions of unfulfilled needs. Try to remember that. That's why we have the chart like this. It's important to be aware of judgments. We mentioned yesterday, don't think that judgments are bad. They're good. Like, what is the example I used yesterday? Does anyone remember? Like a car light. It says your oil is low. It tells you something has to be attended to. So we become aware of our judgments, aware of our feelings, and we can go to the needs. And by fulfilling our needs or working to fulfill our needs, we can be stable and happy and able to pursue Krishna consciousness year after year and eventually go back to Godhead, hopefully. That's the whole idea. The whole idea is all this assists in our progress in Krishna consciousness. And we read from Bhaktivinoda Thakur yesterday and other personalities how this need fulfillment is 100% necessary to be stable in Krishna consciousness. So, can we end now and then come back at 2:30? Is that right? Yes. For the last session. Thank you very much. All glories to His divine grace. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.